At my wife's dad's birthday, the name tag table was staged like a museum exhibit. Harold, the judge. Sloan, the star. Chandler, the closer. Mine said Gavin, the disappointment. The cardstock was thick, the kerning perfect, the joke deliberate. Laughter rolled across the room, the way polite people laugh when cruelty is dressed in couture. Sloan took a slow sip of champagne and said almost kindly, "Well, it's true." I tapped my glass once and waited for the room to still. "A toast," I said. "To the last time you'll ever see me." I set my flute down, crossed to the gift table, laid one plain white envelope among the ribbons and crystal, and walked out. I'm Gavin Mercer. I founded Lex Pilot, a legal tech platform that uses machine learning to tear through contracts and compliance reviews in minutes. People call it AI. I call it a better way to do tedious work. Investors call it a success. My life on paper reads like a brochure, suits that actually fit, a penthouse with views, car that hums like a secret. The only place my resume never mattered was inside the Whitmore family. Sloan's world runs on inherited precedent. Her father presided from the appellate bench long enough for the title to fuse to his name. Her mother fundraises like it's governance. Their firm is the kind of place that still says white shoe without irony. Around that table, I wasn't a founder or a CEO. I was the tech boy, the SAS guy, the reliable sponsor for fishing trips, charity galas, and surprise cash flow emergencies. If it needed underwriting, the joke was that it must be close to my heart. I made it easy. I smiled, signed, and told myself belonging is expensive. The thing about being treated like an ATM is you start acting like a bank. I opened a quiet vault for myself. I shifted assets into a trust with a lock only I could turn. I stood up an LLC called Arcadia Holdings to isolate hospitality and real estate plays. I bought paper most people never see, debt with teeth, rights to appoint directors when covenants get sloppy, little switches hidden in paragraphs other people skip. I reviewed every account with the same attention I give to code. I documented favors the way auditors count screws. If we were going to be transactional, I would become fluent. Sloan had asked me to sponsor her father's birthday. Sponsor, not help. The venue was glass and brass and altitude, the kind of place that charges by the square foot of marble. I routed payment through Arcadia, kept the receipts clean, and showed up in armor cut by Tom Ford. Sloan greeted me with her courtroom smile, the one that says she's winning even when the jury hasn't come back. I drifted through the room like due diligence. Near the raw bar, a retired partner confided that contracts are suggestions and compliance is a hobby for the anxious. The foundation's CFO, pleasantly overpoured, explained how their charity and holding company shared liquidity creatively. He meant money traveled in circles that look innocent if you squint. The venue manager thanked me by my LLC, not my name, for being a steady shareholder of the parent company. So we weren't just customers, we were owners. The more people bragged, the more the map in my head lit up. Arrogance is a phenomenal disclosure tool. Then came the name tags. I read mine again to make sure my eyes weren't editing. Gavin, the disappointment. The laugh was warm and well-practiced. Sloan's gaze hovered, waiting for me to be a good sport. I set the tag down like evidence, raised my glass, and gave them my line. To the last time. The room didn't breathe for a second. I crossed to the gift table and left the envelope. Inside that envelope lived everything I hadn't said at 100 dinners. On top was a unanimous written consent reconstituting the board at Whitmore Capital Properties, the family's commercial real estate spine. 18 months earlier, I'd bought their distressed debt with conversion rights and governance triggers. Their books, helped along by creative charity flows, tripped covenants. The operating agreement, drafted by Harold's own lawyers, gave the majority holders the right to appoint directors. Arcadia and a private equity partner of mine had the votes. Tomorrow morning, their 3-seat board would have 2 new people who didn't share a last name. Next was a notice of assignment and acceleration for the senior loan on the Midtown Tower that housed the family firm. The paper had changed hands quietly until my LLC owned it. Covenant breaches make guns out of clauses. The letter pulled the trigger. Principal due now. They could pay or negotiate with the new owner. Either way, they'd be negotiating with me. Below that sat a termination and non-renewal of Lex Pilot's sweetheart license to the Whitmore firm. Months of discounted access, unpaid overages, and sloppy data handling had finally reached the part of our terms I wrote for this exact scenario. They could come back at market rate after passing a real compliance audit. Otherwise, their associates could rediscover highlighters. Last was my separation packet. The prenup we signed to protect their family from me was about to protect me from their family. Cards canceled, keys revoked, no alimony. Personal effects, student loans, and a salary that would feel different without subsidized software. That's what remained. I included a key card authorizing the new property manager to change locks at the tower after the debt flipped. Courtesy, not mercy. I stepped into the night and called Priya, my CFO. "Go," I said. She'd been waiting with color-coded checklists that could run a space launch. Vendor terminations to family-adjacent accounts went out in a tight burst. Corporate cards closed. Shared authorizations revoked. The Sweetheart discount pipeline that had coughed up free advantages for years dried to dust. My phone began chiming with the clean music of separation. Confirmations from banks, board notices logged by counsel, calendar invites for the new regime's first meeting. Somewhere above the skyline, the envelope was being read. I could imagine Harold unfolding the consent and feeling the room tilt. I could imagine Sloan opening the separation and discovering that the soft floor she'd been standing on was a trap door made of her own signature. The venue staff were probably realizing why Arcadia got answers no one else got. You learn a lot about gravity when you stop mistaking altitude for safety. Sleep didn't bother trying to find me. Before dawn, the emails arrived. Formal letters reserving all rights. Footnotes citing irrelevant cases. Threats to seek immediate relief. I replied once. So do I. The firm asked for emergency access to our platform while they investigated. I offered paid consulting at market rates. Nothing personal, just pricing. Harold called from a number with no name. The judge's tone was gone. A man was speaking. "This is a hostile takeover," he said. "This is governance," I answered. "You were outvoted." He asked for time. I gave him a day because I prefer my victories to look tidy in the minutes. The boardroom smelled like wool and stale authority. My attorney slid clean resolutions across polished wood. The private equity partner joined on a secure call, unruffled and precise. Motions carried. Management changed. Distributions would be based on math, not memory. No shouting, no gloating, just signatures and clocks. Sloan's messages moved through familiar stations. Fury, negotiation, performance regret. Then the long, low hum of bargaining with a future that wouldn't answer back. I forwarded everything to counsel and silenced the thread. There is a mercy in refusing to let old conversations resume. It keeps people from mistaking noise for progress. I moved to a quiet loft where the floors didn't echo someone else's story. The penthouse went to a broker. I kept the car, the code, and my mornings. LexPilot stopped being a prop and went back to being a company. We shipped a compliance scanner that flags data handling sins before they cost firms reputations. We signed 2 of Sloan's competitors without asking the universe for poetry. Our retention numbers climbed when I redirected energy from saving face at dinners to building features clients actually needed. Every so often, I'd run into Whitmore alumni at industry events. They'd corner me with fixed smiles and loose questions. Was it necessary? Couldn't it have been private? Isn't family different? I'd nod the way you nod at toddlers asking why gravity is mean. In private, I'd think about the name tag table. Labels are cheap until someone prints one you didn't write. People have asked what the envelope felt like to slide onto the crystal. Not revenge. Revenge is messy and leaves fingerprints. It felt like closing an open circuit. Power only flows when both ends are honest. I had been standing there, humming, letting the charge leak into a ground that mocked me for shining. I shut it off. The room went quiet. Then I wired my life the way I'd wire a hospital. Redundancy where it matters, breakers where it's dangerous, and labels that match reality. If you want the epilogue, it's ordinary in the best way. Coffee that tastes like something. A desk that faces light. Saturday morning spent building instead of apologizing. I still keep one of those party champagne flutes in a cabinet. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Glass looks strong until it meets a change in temperature. Systems crack at stress points you ignore. Families are systems. So are companies. So are marriages. If the label doesn't match the contents, pressure will do the naming for you. Harold still sends a card during the holidays. My assistant logs it, writes a polite reply, and files it with former associate correspondence. Sloane's profile floats past my feed now and then, increasingly full of thought leadership about innovation. I clicked nothing. The Whitmore firm recalibrated. Without discounted software and quiet subsidies, they learned to bill more cautiously and read more carefully. It turns out the market is an honest judge when the robe is off. If I ever raise a glass to that night, I don't toast the fall. I toast the sentence. To the last time. It wasn't a threat. It was a boundary. On one side stood a man who traded his respect for a chair at someone else's table. On the other stands a builder who understands that belonging is priceless only when it isn't for sale. Call me whatever the tag said. I kept the part after the parenthesis.